Donald Trump blasts Big Fani Willis before he shows up for his arrest. And this is curious because Fani, as part of her consent order with Donald Trump, put in there that Donald Trump shall not do certain things in his behavior as part of the terms of his release. And so people are looking at this and saying, oh, what's the judge gonna do when they see this mean truth out there? And they're gonna freak out. We'll see if the judge does. I don't think the judge has any basis at all to complain about this because this is free speech. And he's in the middle of a campaign and he's allowed to speak this way. And here is what Trump posted. He's commenting on his interview with Tucker, which is outstanding, by the way. 231 million views, he says, and still counting. The biggest video on social media ever. More than double the Super Bowl. But please excuse me. I have to start getting ready to head down to Atlanta, Georgia, where murder and other violent crimes have reached levels never seen before. To get arrested by a radical left, low-life district attorney, Fani Willis, for a perfect phone call and having the audacity to challenge a rigged and stolen election. The evidence is irrefutable. Arrest time, 7:30 p.m. Don't miss it. So there's a lot here. And wow, I mean, he's calling her a low-life radical leftist, which, yeah, I mean, sounds accurate to me. And Trump didn't do anything illegal, in my humble opinion. He was advocating within the space of discretion and he was making his arguments as lawyers do. That's what all lawyers do. That's why we exist. And she said, as part of her RICO charges, that some of his statements were criminal. They constituted acts in furtherance of a conspiracy, including posts. Is this an act in furtherance of a conspiracy? Is this a new crime that he just dropped? She says it wasn't rigged and stolen. He just said it was. Well, this is curious. And so is Trump going to be held in custody? We know that they talked about social media in the consent order. And so let's take a look at exactly what this entailed, because this is where the rules are. And here is what it says. This is the consent order for Donald Trump. And we know that the most insane insurrectionary leader of this country since the Civil War that we've ever seen is going to be released on a $200,000 bond, okay? $200,000 bond, like nothing. It's tip money. And it's a 10% post. So he might be able to post $20,000 and get out of custody. Tip money for Trump. I don't even know what it cost him to run his airplane, but probably in that ballpark. So it's kind of a joke that they would do this. And as we talked about previously, when we compare and contrast all the various consent, bond, and release orders, they just kind of made these numbers up. I think they worked backwards. They just counted the number of different charges, and then they just made this number, whatever it was, to round it up to a nice even number. The violation of the RICO Act is different for basically everybody. Sidney Powell's was different, Jenna Ellis's was different, and so on. But here's what they say. Can Trump post those things? Can he get out there and talk badly about Big Fani Willis? I say, of course he can. Here's what they say he cannot do. Of course, don't violate the laws of the state. You're not allowed to do that anyways, whether you're under indictment or not. You got to appear in court. Okay, that happens in every single case. Shall perform no act to intimidate any person known to him to be a co-defendant or witness in this case, or otherwise to obstruct the administration of justice. Now, again, not real sure what that means. Intimidate. Now, Big Fani is not a co-defendant, and Big Fani is not a witness. So even posting about Big Fani, who is the biggest Fani in Georgia, and I still challenge anybody to show me a bigger Fani in Georgia. It hasn't been done yet. So she is going to be the determiner of what is intimidation or not, and she's going to decide to file a complaint, lodge a complaint with the judge. We'll see. But she's not a co-defendant or a witness, and so that tweet doesn't apply. But here's what they say. Trump shall make no direct or indirect threat. What constitutes a threat? His opinion that she's a low-life hack? Is that a threat? I don't think so. That's his opinion. That's free speech. And she is a partisan hack. The defendant, Trump, shall make no direct or indirect threat of any nature against any witness, which obviously you wouldn't do anyways. That's witness tampering. You can't threaten people in general. It's already illegal. Shall make no direct or indirect threat of any nature against any victim. Same thing there. Big whoop. The defendant shall make no direct or indirect threat against the community. And this is the one we said, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like saying Fulton County is a corrupt bastion of liberal insanity? Is that like shaming the community? I don't know. The above shall include, but are not limited to, posts on social media, reposts also. So if somebody else says it and Trump reposts it, that's a no-no. So they say he shall not communicate with anybody known to be a co-defendant. No problem, not happening. And he shall not also communicate with anybody known to be a witness. Same thing there. So his tweets, his truths seem to me to be perfectly legal and within the bounds of free speech. But we're going to see if if Big Fani has a problem with that, or if the judge has a problem with that, or what happens. And when they try to curtail his ability to speak out on this, that's where we're going to see these two sides come to a head. And I'm very hopeful that Trump continues to spread his wings, exercise maximum reach of free speech authority that he can possibly grab, because this is his defense. Why should he have to sit here and indulge in this notion that this is all legitimate when it is not? That's his free speech. He's free to say that. He's running a political campaign. And if they try to narrow that down, that's a constitutional violation, and he should be able to seek recourse for that. And we'll see if they do. Trump now has a new lawyer called Steve Sadow, who they brought onto the case. And we see CNN is telling us he's en route to Fulton County. So we'll check in and see where he is about shortly. But Trump is replacing his top lawyer ahead of his surrender. So they made a switch. They say Trump has replaced his top Georgia lawyer ahead of his surrender on Thursday evening. He replaced Drew Findling with this guy, Steven Sadow, an Atlanta-based attorney whose website profile describes him as special counsel for white-collar and high-profile defense. Trump is adding an attorney for this RICO case. Sadow filed paperwork on Thursday morning, entered a notice of appearance. Now, a Trump source indicated that this was not about Findling's performance. They didn't say the other guy was bad. They just say this guy is the best criminal defense attorney in Georgia. Trump's other attorney from Georgia, Jennifer Little, is expected to stay on the case and then work with Sadow. Here's what he says. Sadow released a statement. Trump's new lawyer says the following: I have been retained to represent President Trump in the Fulton County, Georgia case. The president should never have been indicted. He is innocent of all the charges brought against him. We look forward to the case being dismissed, or if necessary, an unbiased, open-minded jury finding the president not guilty. Prosecutions intended to advance or serve the ambitions and careers of political opponents of the president have no place in our justice system. Well done. Saying that, yeah, Fani is a partisan hack. In 2021, Sadow criticized RICO charges as a way for prosecutors to introduce evidence that would otherwise not be admissible. He also represented rapper, somebody named Gunna, G-U-N-N-A, Gunna, in a separate RICO case brought by Fulton County DA Fani last year that accused the rapper, whose real name is Sergio, of participating in a criminal street game. In December, Kitchens was released after reaching a plea deal that resulted in community service, right? So slap on the wrist, nothing. A RICO case. Nice job, Big Fani. A RICO case for gang violence with street gangs. This guy gets out with community service. Nice job. She's doing that to gain headlines and to gain notoriety. She gives him a community service plea deal. So you're saying the whole thing was kind of a joke? Got it. Thanks. The abrupt switch in legal representation comes after Trump hired Findling, a prominent attorney. Findling made a number of aggressive and ultimately unsuccessful moves to try to have evidence tossed and Willis disqualified before we even got the filing. Findling and Trump also drew headlines. With Findling, he apparently had earned the hashtag called $billion Lawyer. He represented hip-hop stars like Gucci Mane and Cardi B. Findling wasn't available for comment. Days before Trump revamped his legal team, Findling and his partner, Marissa Goldberg, met with Willis to hash out a $200,000 bond for Trump. The bond and the other pre-negotiated conditions of Trump release will allow him to be processed and released quickly. Trump, of course, is set to be booked, and Trump shook up his legal team. All right, so that's the new guy, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. And we know that Mark Meadows also appeared, and this is another surreal photo. Yesterday, we saw photos of Rudy Giuliani, we saw Sidney Powell, and Jenna Ellis all get mugshots. There are a whole slew of attorneys. This is the chief of staff of Donald Trump when he was in office, the former president. This is Fani Willis arresting him. He's a federal officer. He was going and setting up phone calls, setting up meetings, going to investigate whether there was fraud in Georgia. He was doing regular things that chief of staffs do, that many chief of staffs have done for Democrats for a long time. And they are indulging themselves in the criminal prosecutions of their political enemies in America, and they're thrilled about it. They're like laughing. They're giddy. They're almost manic with their enthusiasm for this because there's a bloodlust in their eyes, and they like to see their political opponents fall. And this is a very interesting clip that came over from this fellow called Bill D'Agostino. Shout out to Bill at Banned Bill on Twitter. And he said this, he came across this one, I thought it was a brilliant catch. He says, Nicole Wallace literally has to stifle a laugh as she remarks that Trump is heading to a jail where 3 people have died over the last month. They laugh about it. So when we listen to this clip, let's remind ourselves that she's kind of, giddy. He says everyone at MSNBC is a ghoul, and ghoulish indeed. And they're just laughing at this. They're sort of mocking the process. But people died in Fani Willis's jail. They're just laughing at that. They're just okay with that. So it's referencing her incompetence. It's referencing the criminality that exists in her state. It references how horrific the jails are and how people just drop dead in jail, which is not a good thing. When you're in the custody of the government, you're not supposed to be killed or die in any way. And this is just happening. And MSNBC is just thrilled about it. Just listen to these people. Watch. Here we go with Bill. This is MSNBC just laughing at dead people and their political opponents being prosecuted by their team.
Just a few minutes ago, Donald Trump, the disgraced ex-president, the frontrunner for the Republican nominee for president, 4 times indicted, departed his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. He's en route to Fulton County, Georgia, via Newark Airport, we believe. He will surrender himself for processing at an overcrowded jail with a reputation for violence and neglect. A jail that is accustomed to holding defendants facing charges up to and including violent crimes, where stabbings are frequent. Actually, 3 people have lost their lives over the last month. That jail is where the disgraced ex-president of these United States is heading right now.
Look at her. Did you see that giddiness? Here, we'll just let that continue to play so we can just watch her facial features as she goes through this, and you can just see her expressions. She said the jail is overcrowded. That's Fani's problem. It's filled with neglect. That's Fani's problem. It's horrific conditions such that 3 people have died. There's violence. It's just kind of madness. And the president is going to go there, the former president, the guy who's running again. And watch her just laugh. Watch her face. It's just horrific. They have no real concern for dead people in Fani's jurisdiction. They're excited that Trump is going to go into a violent, overly filled jail and potentially die. Listen to these maniacs.
Actually, 3 people have lost their lives over the last month. That jail is where the disgraced ex-president of these United States is heading right now.
Laughing about it. Sick people. So when you hear Trump say stuff like that, like, man, these are really sick puppies over there. These are sick people. He's right. They are laughing at dead people, and they're laughing that Trump might be amongst them or something like that. They're giddy about it. They go home and probably pop champagne with each other, excited about what they're doing to the country. Ghoulish indeed. Very ghoulish indeed. And so we're going to see where these 2 issues come to a head. Trump blasting Fani, and we'll see if Fani makes an objection or demands he be held in custody or wherever it goes. But I'm sure these 2 sides of this constant battle will come to a head eventually.